Hey guys, it's Brian with Retired at 40, and I think today we have a recipe and a video that everyone can get into. Because everyone loves macaroni and cheese, especially homemade macaroni and cheese. It's just comfort food at its finest, and it's super easy to make. And today we're gonna make a whole lot of it. And we might have to get a little bit creative today because really what I wanna do is replicate kind of like what you would get in the box at the store, Kraft macaroni and cheese or Kraft cheese and macaroni, whatever it is. So if you like blocks of cheese that don't have to be refrigerated and those little white packets of powdered cheese that come in the box, this video is for you. So in true live life simple fashion, I'm gonna keep this extremely basic, as few ingredients as possible, but I wanna try this a couple different ways. I want to make the whole recipe and then freeze dry it, try and reconstitute it. I also wanna break down each individual ingredient and try and freeze dry it that way and put it back together, and that way we have a recipe that we can throw together with individual ingredients, just macaroni, just Velveeta, and just milk. So I'm going to start off with boiling 4 cups of elbow macaroni, and we're going to see how far this recipe will get us as far as a medium and a large tray, how many finished cups that gets us, and that'll help us with our rehydration. And then we're also going to need some milk. So I'm going to measure out 2/3 of a cup, and I'm actually going to pre-freeze this milk for our individual ingredients. Those are going to go into the freezer until we can add them with the tray later. Then you're gonna need 24 ounces of Velveeta, that's 1 pound, 6 ounces. So 24 ounces just cut up into kind of bite-sized pieces, maybe a little bigger for our individual ingredients. And then I'm gonna put my milk ice cubes here. And then our other 24 ounces, we're gonna add in with this milk to the finished noodles here in a second. So our 4 cups of uncooked macaroni have now turned into 8 cups of cooked macaroni. I'm going on to our new silicone that we have. It's color matched to all of our other products in freezedryingsupplies.com. I think I'm gonna do 4 cups on each tray. And then that'll leave us 2 trays left, which I think will fill these other 2 trays with the rest of our mixed ingredients. And now to finish out our macaroni recipe. For our mixed ingredients, you're just gonna drain the noodles. You're gonna put it back in the pan, add your 2/3 of a cup of milk and your 24 ounces of cheese, and then you can hit it with a little bit of salt and pepper if you want. Some people like a little garlic powder or some onion powder. Some people like ground mustard also. And I'm definitely gonna use the tray dividers on this recipe, and that knife edge that's on the bottom of these cuts through the noodles real nice. Our finished product ended up being about 10 cups with the cheese and the milk in there. So I think we're gonna do 5 cups on each large tray. This is a large size freeze dryer. Our tray with the silicone on it weighs 1,050 grams. We're gonna do 5 cups on each of these trays. This is for a large freeze dryer. 5 cups should also fit on a medium. And if there's one thing that I've learned since I started freeze drying, it's consistency is your friend. And it's way better to underfill your trays than to overfill. So our trays with the mac on there is around 2175. And we're gonna do portions of 10 on the finished macaroni, and then I think I'm gonna actually go back and change our cooked macaroni to portions of 10 as well. So because we have everything divided into 10s, it should be really easy. These are ready for the deep freeze. And here are our frozen milk cubes. Our frozen Velveeta. I think if we just slice that divided by the amount of portions that we have, that'll give us the correct amount of freeze-dried material that we need, which will be really handy hydrating in the future. And while I'm loading the freeze dryer, I just want to take a minute and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the notifications bell. That'll let you know every time we release a new video, which is Sundays at 8 a.m. for us. If you like the videos, if you found them helpful, give us a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps get these videos out to the right folks. And if you see any products that you like in this video, you can pick those up at freezedryingsupplies.com. Don't forget to join one or both of our social media groups, our Facebook group and our MeWe group. It's just Retired at 40's freeze drying group in both of those. And if you're considering buying a freeze dryer, then just consider using our affiliate link. It helps us bring you this YouTube content. It helps us with our free giveaways in the social media group, and it helps us keep the freeze drying community informed. And I think we are ready to go, and I will inform you when this is done. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, I'm using the oilless pump, the new one. This is, I think, my 4th batch with it. So far, so good. I like it better than the other oilless pump. Time will tell. And we are done at 26 hours, 59 minutes, almost 27 hours. Pretty quick cycle. But I want to point something out. I used the oilless pump. The oilless pump worked flawless through our cycle. But one thing that I neglected to mention on my oilless pump review is that this thing runs extremely cool. In fact, it says that it runs at 120 degrees, but with this cover on it, I feel 0 heat coming from this thing, like not at all. And that's such an improvement over the old oilless, or the older oilless, the Eagle. I just wanted to point it out because I'm really impressed with that. I'm going to use my moisture meter. This is a perfect opportunity for the moisture meter, just because we have several different things that we were freeze drying. This cheese has a pretty good amount of oil in it, but it seems to me like it freeze dried fine. Something that you wouldn't think would freeze dry, but it definitely does. Not reading any moisture on this, so that's great. The noodles should be really obvious whether they're dry or not. Those would probably be the first things to dry. Our finished macaroni, really dry. So our finished macaroni, 1447. Second tray, 1453. We'll call it 1450. This should be really easy to rehydrate because these are half cup increments. There's 10, so all we need to do is take our water weight difference between the before and after and divide that either by 20 or by 10, depending on whether you want half cup servings or 1 cup servings. Our individual ingredients are going to be a little bit different, but we do have 20 portions, so we should be able to weigh our milk, weigh our cheese, divide it by 20, and add our 1/20th measurement of our cheese and our milk to one of these portions. And that should give us a rehydrated half portion or half serving of finished macaroni. I also want to point out a couple of things. So when you're doing pastas and things that are really rigid, when they're freeze dried, they're very hard, they could have sharp edges. On this, I would flip it so the smooth side is on the outside when you're bagging this. So I actually put the noodle side together and then I put it inside the bag with the smooth side out. It's really going to help lower the possibility of puncturing this Mylar bag, especially if you're using a thinner Mylar. But even if you're using 7mm Mylar, it can still happen. So just be aware of that when you're bagging. So we're going to take all of the cheese, we're going to put this in a food processor, and we're going to try and powder it as much as possible. We're going to do the same to the milk. We're going to divide that by 20, and ideally we will have a rock solid recipe for individual ingredients mac and cheese. So that cheese worked awesome. It is a fine powder now, which we know works really well to rehydrate. We're right at 300 grams, which is great because that's going to divide really nice. There's our milk powder. It's actually 20 grams, which is also really nice to divide. And this is all looking actually really promising. This cheese powder, I would imagine you could use in all kinds of stuff. So that could be a future video just by itself. I'm gonna get some hot water boiling and I'll do some quick math and figure out our recipe for rehydration, and stay tuned. 1 tablespoon of milk powder, 5 tablespoons of our cheese powder, 2 portions from our dividers in a large size, and a little bit more than 1/4 cup of hot water. I'm gonna give this a good mix and then I'm gonna let it sit. That should also apply to our already made macaroni and cheese, so a strong 1/4 cup. Give that a good mix as well. We'll give that some time to sit. We'll give it a taste test. So this has been sitting for about 5 minutes, and I've noticed on both that the cheese does start to clump up. I think if you let it sit for 5 minutes, give it a good stir again, and then maybe let it set for a few more minutes, I think we should be good. So our macaroni after 10 minutes, this is our pre-made macaroni, then freeze-dried. This is our individual ingredients. You can see the individual ingredients is a little bit creamier, Let's give this a taste test. This is our individual ingredients macaroni. It's really, really creamy, really, really good. The Velveeta does awesome. There are a few pieces of macaroni here and there that are a little bit rubbery, and I think the solution to that, instead of using this big macaroni like I use, they make a smaller elbow macaroni, and I think that would solve the problem for sure. And here's our pre-made macaroni. It did really well also. But I'm going to recommend the same thing on this. I think the smaller elbow macaroni would work a lot better because there are a few pieces that are a little bit rubbery still. So a couple things we can take away from this video for freeze-dried mac and cheese. Make sure you give it plenty of time to rehydrate. We want to avoid that rubbery macaroni. And going along with that, if you can, use the smallest elbow macaroni that you can, because the larger stuff is going to take longer to rehydrate. So if you can do the small size elbow macaroni, I think you're going to have a lot better results. We also figured out that freeze-dried Velveeta is awesome, and I think we can use it in a ton of different stuff. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the recipe. And in the meantime, remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.